look, this is like traditional seasonality, right? So when
Yep.
we look ahead for, anybody that's watching this video is going to be watching it probably last week of December, first week of January. And everybody's going to be like, all right, my New Year's resolution is like, I need to buy that house this year.
I'm going to get the house. I'm going to get my first investment property.
Mhm.
Like they're thinking.
But they're thinking like, I'm going to do it, but like, how do I do it? When do I do it? Right. And so this is just the outline of how things usually work in real estate. If you only care about price, you should probably look here, or you should probably look here. If
Yep.
you're somebody that is like, I need the dream house, the price isn't, the price is important, but I care more about the house. Like I'm not willing to sacrifice on the house. Then you need to be looking during a time when there's tons of homes for sale so that you can have the best choice and get the best house. That would be here.
Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name is Zack Brittain with Phipps Brittain Real Estate, and today we have Emma, the pace of base, our Toronto correspondent, everything Toronto real estate and more. How are we today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. We are flying on good internet now. The weather is clearing up, but we are heading into the Christmas season. So we have November stats. We have stuff on renting, stuff on home ownership for new owners. We also have stuff on what's happening in the new year and seasonal trends, if not more. So start us off. What are we getting into first, Emma?
So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about a new report that I put together because we've had a lot of renters coming through on our side.
Oh.
And, obviously, the rental rates have been crazy in Toronto, and so I think there's this kind of inflection point for a lot of renters where they're like, oh, if my landlord's selling, what do I do? Do I actually go and secure a new, rental property at these enhanced rates, or do I keep so just for anybody out there that is a renter, I'm just going to share my screen and kind of show you guys this. We just put this together. So it's 5 renter to owner strategies that like Toronto millennials are actually using right now to be able to get in the market. This isn't like just save more money or wait for the market to bottom out. They're like legitimate strategies, and some of them you can actually use, I call it like a strategy stack, where you might be able to take 2 or 3 of these things and stack them on top of each other, like, specifically house hacking, and then, marrying the house versus dating the rate. Like, how can we actually stack a couple of these strategies together to like legitimately get you in the market? Because I think, I was reading a report the other day, and only 22% of millennials actually think that they're ever going to be able to achieve home ownership. And I think what happens is we realize that things are hard, and sometimes we just like put our head in the sand or like pour a glass of Pinot and then, watch Love is Blind and try and forget about everything. But for me, I think it's really important that like we kind of face the facts and realize like what it actually is going to take to be able to get into the market. So I just put together this report to go through 5 different ways that I actually think people I know that people are using in today's day and age to actually take advantage of the market conditions, because we'll go through the numbers in a second, but one of the biggest pullbacks that we've seen in 20 years in real estate. So there are people that are actually taking advantage of these price reductions even after, having 16-year interest rate highs.
That's super interesting, because it's not like expensive property and expensive rent is new in your market. Yeah. But I think the landscape and how quickly those variables have changed in terms of like how expensive and readily available good rentals are, let alone good purchases in your market are, since that shifted so much. This is super interesting. And I'm like you said, you've been hearing a lot from renters because their situations have changed so quickly and rental rates have gone up so quickly in your market after that kind of dip in during the beginning of COVID. So if you guys are watching this video, you want to know how to get into home ownership, or you just want to know how to set yourself up to move from renting into home ownership, great resource. And there's a link in the description for us for a free download. Yeah,
100%. Just click the link below, get access to that report. It's like 6 pages. I actually went through a couple of like very good examples of how you can stack these things on top of each other.
Awesome.
And like legitimately make it work. So it isn't fluff. It's actually a pretty good report that I spent like quite a bit of time putting together. So I'm hoping that it'll be helpful for a lot of people out there, because like I'm fully empathetic with the situation. Like rental rates are very significant. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to own a home, but in some scenarios, there isn't a drastic disparity between owning something and renting something, especially if you have a longer term view on kind of like the overall numbers and refinancing your property in the next year or two when rates come down. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean like you have to download the thing and go and buy a house right now, but like understand what tools or strategies are available to like actually move the needle forward a little bit for you.
Yeah, if you guys got 20 minutes off during the holidays, which I'm sure you do,
Yeah.
get a cup of coffee, get a tea, get a Pinot, if that's what you're doing right now. Hit the books for about 10, 15 minutes and maybe learn something that'll help you change your life. Let's get it done.
I like it.
That's awesome. So, and we're going to get into more the strategies as well, I think, later on. A lot of the people on the channel have been kind of reflecting and saying, hey, a lot of our people need to get set up for the new year, set up for executing on kind of the deals with the type of property they want in the new year. For now, do we have base stats? Do we have anything else for the Toronto market to kind of get everybody up to speed? Because I know, I watch your videos every month. I'm very interested in the Toronto market. I do know that different segments in different areas have kind of been a little different. There hasn't been a ton of consistency from some of the stuff that I've seen in some random little pockets in the market. We're not going to go like deep dive today, I don't think. But can we get the quick and the dirty?
Yeah, so let's go through the numbers. Again, I think just kind of given where we're at in the year, we're wrapping up the year. It's been a really crazy year. I mean, everybody started on this massive high for Q1, and then all of a sudden it was like the real estate market fell off a cliff. So I want to run through the numbers, but I think more importantly today, what I really want to try to accomplish is like giving people some tools and like looking ahead a little bit to see what the traditional market cycles are, so that timing the market is not a great strategy, but if you're trying to figure out a general time frame for what could be a good fit for your personal situation, you kind of have an understanding of like how the market should move throughout 2023. So let's look at Toronto proper. We'll look at the month over month, and we'll look at the annual performance. So condos, and we're looking at November numbers. Obviously, we don't have the December ones until January comes around. But I suspect we'll probably see a little bit of a pullback. We're not seeing a ton of activity, so I don't think we'll see a massive drop in overall price point, but we also just don't have a whole heck of a lot going on, to be honest. Like, there aren't a lot of trades.
Yeah, just to take a step back from there, like less volume in any market means a better chance for larger variance. So, and if it's a lot slower over the holiday season, which it typically is, then, you can typically expect sales numbers to be a little bit more depressed. Like, guys, we're in Southern Ontario here. Seasonal trends do apply.
Yeah, and I mean, look, a lot of the sellers that are not in a position where they actually need to sell their property, they've already removed their property from the market with an intention of relisting at some point in time in the new year. So, if there's not a whole heck of a lot of homes for sale in your criteria and you're actively looking, like, don't be surprised by it. But the people that are on the market right now still they probably do have a higher, a high probability of being more motivated, because I think the people that are willing to hold out for a bit of a higher price are already off the market at this point.
Yeah, either their listing is in a situation which it doesn't cost them much to keep it on the market in terms of personal or financial, or they truly are motivated, right? Yeah. And there could be lots of market segments, especially in your area. There could be little pockets where there are just not a ton of their type of listing. So they think, hell, well, we don't have to compete with that many people. Yeah, it's not necessarily the busiest time to list, but if there's no competition, maybe you stick it up and see what happens.
Yeah, totally. So looking at the numbers, condo prices basically went from 740 to 735. Like,
we're flat.
Movement, pretty flat. Towns are the same, 863 to 856. So not a whole heck of a lot of movement. Flat. Semis are down from 1.219 to basically 1.18. So about 2%. Yep. But again, to your point earlier, there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot of activity, and the semi market in Toronto is almost always one of the lowest activity. So like, regardless of market performance, there just isn't a whole heck of a lot of trades that happen.
Well, and very similar to what's happening in my market in Waterloo Region is a lot of the semis are, your 60s, 70s, 80 builds, which are great. They're affordable. They're in very central areas, great for new buyers, families, investors. or the brand spanking new 2,000, 2,500 square foot, like luxury semis that are infill projects in downtown central neighborhoods or way out in the new suburbs, and they're just, you know, big mansions essentially, right? So it's, you know, this is important to get general context. Do any of these numbers surprise you, or is this kind of in the realm of expectation for you and your team?
No, I mean, this is kind of what I expect, just given overall carrying cost and just general affordability, right?
Yeah.
Like condos are always going to be the lowest barrier to entry to get on the property ladder at the end of the day. And so to be able to see that segment of the market hold a little bit better, like if you look at the bottom here, just in regards to like year over year, and we forget about the right side month over month, we're flat for condos in towns.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there are some people out there that are like, that's terrible because I didn't see a 20% run rate on my price. And it's like, that's not actually normal. But when I look at this and, you know, understand kind of like, I don't want to say the market bottoming out, but just having some stability, just given the fact that, again, condos are the lowest barrier to entry to be able to actually get on the property ladder for those that are looking for investment properties or for first-time buyers. I think you're always going to have like a little bit more stability on the price point there, because it's like you have first-time buyers, investors, and then rents have propped it up as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we're going to see as much variance on a price point that is 50% of a detached house. Like more people are able to afford and carry the 730,000 than 1.5.
Yeah, and I'm assuming these are general concepts that your market has followed, and I would assume will likely continue to follow. Like Emma just said, guys, the lowest barrier on that property ladder being your condos, as other, you know, segments of your market in Toronto and the surrounding markets get shifted up so much with price declines, inclines, up and downs, competition and stuff. Everybody's going to just move a little bit further down the ladder during these shifting markets. So that will keep all this pressure on your condo and your condo towns. They're more affordable. They're easier to buy and sell typically because there's less barriers and they are more affordable, which means they appeal to so many more people. And I'm assuming you're taking these concepts into your suggestions when you're, you know, giving resources for people that are trying to go from renting to owning, as well as your consultations for your buyers, right?
Yeah, and like, look, I think, you know, one of the biggest objections that we get, and I'm sure your team gets as well, Zach, is even today we'll go through, you know, how much we've already seen pulled back, like the market has already pulled back from a price point perspective, but I still hear I'm waiting for prices to continue to go down, and I need this bubble to burst and whatever it happens to be, and I'm like, it's totally fair for people to like inherently feel that way because there's this uncertainty. We haven't had a lot of certainty in the market in a long time. But my real question is, when prices have already come back or pulled back 25, 30%, 40% in some market, like how much further are you waiting for these things to come back? Or are you, you're just playing a defensive strategy where my advice would be, go out in a market that's already pulled back 25% and then find the motivated sellers who are willing to give you another 5 to 10% discount. And all of a sudden you've hit your metric or your target, your threshold that you want to hit, and you're down 35% off the peak of the market, right?
I can't time the market, neither can you, but we sure shit can help you find the best deals in the current market because you're active in it. So I think everybody on the channel has kind of preached that in the last few months as well. And I appreciate you bringing it up again. Like, ladies and gentlemen, there is no perfect timing to the bottom, but the general strategies and fundamentals are going to apply. So,
yeah, I mean, look, if I told you could buy your absolute, favorite shirt from your favorite brand for 25 to 30% off, you'd probably jump for joy. And right now, if I could tell you could buy a AAA condo with an amazing view in a great neighborhood that has guaranteed growth in the future, and you're buying it at a 30% discount, if I could rewind this to last year and say this statement, people would be jumping for joy. They'd be rushing like, yes, I need to buy. But right now, because there's still that like inherent human fear of like, I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't want to make a quick decision. I think at the end of the day, it's like you just have to know your numbers. You have to have like your KPI that you want to hit. If you can get in at 35% off for your, dream home or your first home and build some equity, and you're willing to like hold it for 5 to 10 years. Like it's a pretty good strategy if you can afford to make the payments.
Yeah. And then before we move on, I'll ask you this. And I asked some of the other hosts this past month the same question. And it is, do you think property values in your core markets are going to be higher or lower than they are now in this time next year?
I think they'll be higher personally. Now,
okay. What percentage chance do you put on that outcome?
I guess it's tough to say because I can't predict exactly what's going to happen. I can't predict exactly what's going to happen with rates. But what I can say is, now I should actually clarify that I think that would be in the condo segment of the market.
Okay.
It's tough to say. Like it'll be neighborhood dependent, I think, for like detached or semis. I think if interest rates continue to increase, we'll probably continue to see rents go through the roof. And then that also, again, still provides this stability in terms of like condo prices.
Yeah, because the rents can support the larger payments because your interest rates are going on.
Exactly, yeah. So I think it depends, but I think in the condo segment of the market, I wouldn't be surprised to see prices more than what they are today. But I don't know what that could be 1%. That I don't think it's going to be 20%. I'll tell you that.
Okay, then follow-up question.
Yeah.
What about in 5 years? Are we higher or lower?
I wouldn't even question whether or not it'd be higher.
Boom, there it is right there. Guys, listen, fundamentals, it's a long term. Emma and her team are thinking long term.
Yeah.
That's what real estate is. It's long gone are the days where you're up 30% in a year, like it has been off and on for the last 4 or 5 years. That's really not that common. So after the pullback,
one thing that people like often overlook is buyer psychology when it comes to this. And so one of the reasons why I say that, though, because I think there's going to be some people in the comments that probably combat me, like if they're like following all these economists. And I'll tell you why. Because I think in the next 6 months, right, we see some type of inflection point with interest rates where they go from increasing to potentially decreasing or staying flat. And my market knowledge from having conversations with buyers is that buyers aren't saying I don't want to buy a house. They're just trying to prolong and time the market. So what happens is once we hit this inflection point and there's buyer confidence that resumes in the marketplace, what happens is the same thing that happened at the beginning of last year. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's my time. I got to hop back in. And everybody hops back in at the same time. You start to get, I don't necessarily think we're going right back into bidding wars, but I've already seen people losing leverage in terms of like the amount of time that they're allowed for a home inspection or the review of their status certificate or their financing. You used to be able to ask for like 10 days in the middle of summer. People are like 3 days now, right? So we start to slowly lose this leverage. And once we see that inflection point happen, probably on the latter half of 2023, then I think that's when we start to see prices pick back up because the consumer confidence and the buyer psychology of like the market's bottomed out, I should hop back in. Well, if everybody hops back in at the same point and we don't have a ton of inventory, then we end up being in a similar situation to what we had happen at the beginning of 2022. So that is where my justification comes from with, you know, the point that I made about condo prices. I think detached prices have pulled back 14%. So do I think that they're going to recover 14 and then be up a little bit more? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. And I think that like before I got into the business, I always thought like buyer psychology, whether it was in real estate or anything else, was just kind of like some BS that media would make up to just like explain trends. But it is so true. The reality is a lot of buyers out there don't know what the next year or 2 years is with confidence. They could look us in the eyes and say, oh yeah, well, real estate's going to be up in 5 years or 10 years. And you're like, okay, well then make a great decision now and reap the benefits in 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
But inherently humans, if they have too much uncertainty, then there's inherently too much risk in the short term. It's very hard for us as people and as humans to make decisions with confidence.
Yeah.
So, I think what you're saying is if you can see the long-term trends and you're in a position to make a move affordably and comfortably that's going to make sense for you and your lifestyle and your goals, make that with confidence now and reap the benefits before all these other people start jumping into the market and stealing all your good deals. And I think that's fair advice. You also mentioned another thing too, inventory. Do we have any inventory numbers for Toronto?
I do have some coming up.
Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of inventory. That's like, if I could break it down to,
I have some numbers for you, but I don't have any inventory. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like I basically just don't have any inventory. Basically, at the end of the day, but let's look at like general GTA like suburban markets. So Durham was basically flat, like literally 892 to 892. Peel was actually up a little bit. That should be a plus. So a mil 36 to a mil 39 for average price point in Peel. Halton was down about 5%, so 1.2 to 1.15.
But I'm assuming Halton would have the most variance in terms of volume. Like it would be the smallest in terms of these regions, right?
Yeah, and then you also have, well, you're taking into consideration like Milton, Burlington, and Oakville, right? So you're also going to have a pretty big disparity in terms of like property valuation as well. And then you take into consideration low inventory, so you're going to have a bigger swing.
Okay, I got you.
And then Toronto, we're looking at, mil 93 to a mil 50, and then York region was actually up 4%. But for me, when I look at this, I'm like, some decent swings for Halton, Toronto, and York, plus minus. But if you look at like the general trend here, it's like relatively flat.
Yeah, we're all kind of within this little range, right?
Yeah, I mean, like if you look back at this is Feb, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, every single month we were doing the market report is like -10, -11, -10, whatever, right?
Oh.
And I'm starting to see a little bit more, like as if I double click on this and zoom in, it's like we're seeing some stability at this point.
Yeah, after moves of like 50 to 80,000 in a month, you're just like, yeah, we're up and down 5-10K. We're give or take.
Yeah, 100%. So that's kind of where we land for the suburban markets.
Okay.
If we're looking at like peak to current prices for the suburban markets.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Durham was at 1.2.
And is this average or is this?
Yeah, this is composite. Okay. So this takes into consideration like every segment.
Okay, perfect.
Right? So the average price point for Durham was 1.2. It's currently at 892, so just under 900K. So 27% discount, almost 30% off.
That's huge.
Yeah. Peel was 1.3 down to basically like we'll say a mil and a half, like mil 50-ish almost. So 21% price reduction. Halton was at 1.5, we're down to 1.15, so 24%, and then Toronto was at 1.2, and now we're down to mil 50.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're down about 13%.
Okay. And do any of these surprise you, or any of the? Because like I see the where was it here? This not Peel. It was Halton that had just such a like almost 400K.
Yeah.
Right. That 400K sticks out to me, but in relation to the price point, that's not even the biggest faller compared to even Durham region percentage wise, right?
Totally.
So I mean, Durham's trying to get more affordable. It looks like.
I like percentages because I think if you look at the percentage, it tells it
can be more representative. I think.
Yeah, 100%. So if you look at this, and I'll show you another graph in a second, but to see 25 to 30% off in the bulk of Southwestern Ontario, like that's actually not abnormal, right? So to see Halton around 25%, Peel's at 21, 27, like between 20 to 30% is not abnormal. Toronto's actually performs fairly well, even though it looks very poor at -13. It's actually performed fairly well in comparison to the rest of the market.
Yep.
So if we look at Toronto specifically, and then we look at again condos, the lowest pullback, we have a 10% pullback. So 822 was the peak, 734. So it's held relatively well in comparison to the rest of the market. Condo towns are down about 12, semis are down about 20, and then detached are down about 24%. So again, I think this kind of goes to my point of like entry level purchase prices tend to have a little bit more stability because the buyer pool is bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, in our market, in a lot of newer markets in Southern Ontario, Toronto is obviously the biggest by a mile, but I think maybe like your Londons, your Hamiltons, certainly in the Waterloo region, condo prices have held values the best as well. Yeah. But partly because a lot of those secondary markets kind of within a 2 or 3 hour drive of you guys are just starting to kind of hit that condo, boom. Where the last 5-10 years is really where they've seen a lot of their condos. It's all the new buildings, redeveloping your downtowns, the condos haven't saturated those markets nearly as much as the larger markets. Like they don't need them as much. Yeah. So a lot of the condo numbers are, units that were sold 1 or 2 years ago that are finally closing. And these are like, beautiful premium luxury condos downtown, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car parking, balcony, and all the nice big fancy stuff you get with all the newer buildings.
Yeah.
Does that hold up the GTA market, specifically Toronto as well, in terms of keeping their values up? Because a lot of constantly new units coming to market in your city centers, right?
We actually don't have.
Oh shit!
In comparison to like immigration and numbers, we just don't have a ton. Like I think on average right now, our completion was about 25,000 new units, which isn't actually a whole heck of a lot.
That's not a lot.
Yeah. So, not to go down like the supply and demand whole situation, because that's a whole other video, but that poses an issue in 5 years from now, because if you actually look at how many projects were canceled this year as a result of interest rates, we typically only have 25,000. Now this year we've canceled a bunch of projects because of interest rates that aren't coming to completion now. So what happens in 5 years from now when we go back to the point of, do I think prices are going to be higher? Well, we already have a little bit of a deliverability issue when it comes to new inventory, and I think we're going to have a bigger deliverability issue in 2026.
You just saw a blip in what is going to be a lack of supply. A couple of developers, condo projects getting delayed or getting canceled for now. It's going to take them 2, 3, 4 years to even get that back up on the train.
Yeah,
we're delivering to the market.
I think just over 5,000 cancellations, which is 20%, and we already don't have a lot. So, right, it's
interesting.
It's not insignificant.
Very cool that you keep track of that. Very, very cool.
When you have the immigration targets that we have, which are, very aggressive, and you have everybody needs a place to live, man. Like all these, we need homes for all of these people. And then what ends up happening is, to your point earlier, and I feel like because I've been in Toronto for so long and because I came from London, I always had this vision of I have to live in a detached house as my first house, and I'm never going to live in a condo, right? And I feel like I learned early coming from London and then living in Toronto that if I actually want to achieve this goal of home ownership, I don't get my London, Ontario dream in Toronto. I have to get the condo. And I had to bite the bullet and just accept that. And what I've realized is as we have larger immigration targets and that, housing isn't affordable in Toronto for some people, and then COVID hits and they want to go to other cities, you have to realize, similar to what you said, most people that are our age, regardless of the city, whether you're in Windsor, whether you're in Kitchener or London, doesn't matter. You're not usually starting with your dream house anymore.
Really? You don't get to have your cake and eat it too? You don't get the white picket fence, double car garage, jacuzzi tub, and the ensuite?
You wish.
That's
a second house for suburban markets, I think.
It's a second house if you're lucky for suburban markets.
Yeah. Toronto, I think there's a three-pronged approach, right? It's like the condo, and then you go to the condo, townhouse, or the semi, and then if you make good strategic moves, you get the dream home on the third purchase. That's what I think. Yeah. And I think in suburban markets, if you do a really good job, you might be able to get that in 2, but we're probably going to continue to see that those rungs of the ladder, it's just there's just going to keep being more rungs of the ladder. You're going to have to play the game for longer. You're going to be more strategic with your purchases as prices go up. And that is the way that you actually get your dream home. You don't just keep saving at your job and just hoping that you're going to continue to outsave what's happening in the market. It's you continue to save at your job and make strategic moves along the way and use both in combination, and then you can get the house that you want.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, you obviously have the experience doing that kind of level up move each step of the way for clients. And, you've done it for long enough and enough times to really see the strategies and the mindset for those that succeed.
What's funny though? You just said that I did it for clients. I didn't do it for clients. I did it for myself. And then that's how I figured out, because for me, when I got into real estate, I always felt weird about it. Right away, I'm like, oh, I can't sell real estate if I don't own a house. And I was 25 and I'm I need to figure out how to buy a place in Toronto as a 25-year-old. And I'm because I just didn't feel I didn't feel comfortable selling someone a condo if I didn't own a condo or be able to figure it out myself.
Yep.
So the strategies that I've implemented and that I've seen people have success with, I was my first guinea pig. I just did all of the things and I was okay, that worked. Okay, that didn't work. Let's not do that. Let's do this. So I actually built the strategy for myself. I followed the strategy and now I teach it to other people to do.
That's money advice. That's fantastic. Yes, do what you know has to be done. Figure out by learning, and then be like, oh, I can share all of my mistakes and how to succeed with you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I've gone through it all. I'm on house 4, so I'm not like I'm walking the walk. I'm not just talking the talk here. Like, I'm on house 4, and I would have never been able to get the house that I live in now without following this strategy. And that's kind of like what I outlined in the report. It was just like, dude, it might not be sexy, like it might not be the funnest, but it works. Like, it works all the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, all right, let's
shameless plug for Emma. If you guys want to walk the walk and talk the talk from somebody who has done it all step by step, we're gonna hit up at the Pace of Base or get connected in the description below.
Thanks.
Free downloads too. I'm all about the free downloads. Let's go. Okay, and we got important metrics. What are we covering now?
So this was the seasonality cycle that I really wanted to go through.
Okay, cool.
I did a presentation at Wealth Simple just before COVID, and I dug this up from some dusty old files on my computer because I thought it would be important to go through.
You're like, how much does this apply?
Yeah, well, look, this is like traditional seasonality, right? So when we look ahead for, anybody that's watching this video is going to be watching it probably last week of December, first week of January, and everybody's going to be like, all right, my New Year's resolution is like, I need to buy that house this year.
I'm going to get the house. I'm going to get my first investment property. Like, they're thinking.
But they're thinking like, I'm going to do it, but like, how do I do it? When do I do it? Right. And so this is just an absolute, like, this is just the outline of how things usually work in real estate. Now, what Zach and I could say is we don't know exactly how this year is going to pan out. There's going to be some seasonality. It's just like, is everything going to happen on these exact traditional timelines, or is everything going to be pushed back a little bit? Is going to be moved ahead a little bit? But like, this is how things usually work in real estate, right? So January, everything is dead. Similar to like, if you're looking at listings right now and there's no listings or there's no activity, it's not abnormal. It's creepily slow given the fact that the market is not doing well right now, but like, this is normal for things to be down here. Okay. Yep. Then we see second week of January, early February, things start to pick back up for like actual sales, new inventory that hits the market, all of that kind of stuff where, people aren't rushing back to market January 4th usually. Like, if you want to wait for some inventory to come to market, I don't know, January 16th, 17th, 18th, you might start to see some new homes hit the market. So we see more activity. And then once new homes hit the market, because everyone starts their search online, then the buyers are like, oh shit, there's actually houses for sale. They call me and Zach up. They're like, hey, we want to go see this house. And we're like, all right, let's get you prepared. We'll get you pre-approved. Everything's good to go. That takes a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden we're into March now. And look what happens. The spring market happens. There's the highest number of buyers and there's usually the highest number of homes for sale. We go through the spring market to the end.
That little influx in the spring too, that is the week or two after March break without fail. All the parents get back from March break. They're like, nice, I'm going to send my ungrateful kids back to school. Shit, we got to sell the house so we're in the new house by summer because no way I'm moving during the school season with the kids.
Yep. And everybody wants to get that done before September so their kids can get settled in and like meet the kids on the street and be in their new school and all that.
It makes sense, but they're like, so this was 2018.
So
look at 2019, December, January, dead.
Yeah. So we go through the spring and then summer, everybody takes vacation and is at the beach and not focusing on real estate. And then everything dies down. And then Labor Day hits and everyone goes, oh shit, again, I'm back to work and I should look for houses right before because I don't want to move in the winter and I don't want to go search for houses in the winter. So then you see a little bit of an uptick and then November and December hit and boom, here's where we are again. And then things start back up and this is the traditional market cycle. So what I can say for 2023 is I don't know if we're going to see this happen like clockwork, right? Like we may start to see these trends again, but they might be delayed. Like you might see this really flat and then we start to peak up a little bit later, just given what's happening with rates. But what I would say is don't worry as much about like the actual timing of it. You need to understand the concept of how it works. And that comes back to like the buyer psychology that we talked about earlier. This is how things usually work. These are like the cycles. You just have to figure out like what makes sense for you. Are you someone who's super price sensitive and you only care about price? Because if you only care about price, you should probably look here, or you should probably look here. If you're somebody that is like, I need the dream house, the price isn't, the price is important, but I care more about the house, like I'm not willing to sacrifice on the house, then you need to be looking during a time when there's tons of homes for sale so that you can have the best choice and get the best house. That would be here. So you have to know what type of buyer you are. And again, you have to know your metrics and what the outcome is that you're looking for so that you can figure out when the best season would be for you to potentially be the most active.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned something really interesting there is you have to find out what type of buyer you are. And, you know, old Zach that didn't have experience in this business or with something like this, I would have just rolled my eyes and been like, what type of buyer I am? What kind of lame crap is that? I want to buy a freaking house, Emma. But it's super important for you to have those honest conversations with yourself as a buyer, an investor, as a seller, or with your family and your partner, whoever's involved. Because like Emma just said, if you're a price sensitive buyer, and that is the most important, this is purely a financial move for you. Let's say you're taking that first step on Emma's ladder to kind of get into your long-term home. If you're a price sensitive buyer and you're like, I want the best possible deal in terms of price, that's the most important thing, and I'm using this purely as a financial move, then maybe take a better look during these months where there's fewer homes available, fewer sales, fewer competition, because it's probably more likely that you could either find a motivated seller or better terms with the seller, or just a better price because you're competing with less people. Yeah. If you're more I need exact perfect home, well, there's less options available right now. So you connect with Emma and her team now so that come spring when all the listings are available, you have 3, 4, or 5 months to shop that perfect home.
Yeah. And that, like what you just said there is my exact trajectory on like when I was saying like buying those couple of homes. The first property, I was price sensitive. I was looking for something that I knew I had like some baked in equity. I was going to make some money so that I could move up to something that was a little bit better. My first house, I was only looking really here and here. Like I just wanted the best deal.
Yep.
Fast forward to where I am today. I'm not looking for this anymore. I'm looking for this. Like this is, so I have gone through that like ascension point of like, now I just want the dream home. Right. Yeah. And well, so
I think I bought my first house in end of November, first week of December.
Yeah. 100%.
Now that I think about it, shit.
If you are price sensitive, then right now is an amazing time. If you're somebody who is really looking like I already have a property, I've got like a 2-bed, 1-bath, and I really need that 3-bed, 2-bath house. Yep. You're probably going to end up looking here because there might not be a whole heck of a lot of inventory. Or if you're a growing family that is a 3-bed house, 2-bath, and you need like that 4-bed, 4-bath, you might need to wait until spring because there's not like a whole heck of a lot of inventory for 4-bed, 4-bath houses.
Yeah. And I think it's just really important to have those conversations early, because the amount of times that I know in my experience that we get clients coming in the heat of spring and they kind of not necessarily miss the boat, but like had you been ready and casually looking at the beginning of the spring throughout, then you're almost guaranteed to find multiple suitable options, regardless of how rare that is, like the 4-bedroom, 3-bath homes in your market. Yeah. Because then they're just shooting themselves in the foot. You get fatigued. Now you're into the summer and you're kind of burnt out as a buyer, as a seller. So here's
the thing with that, right, is people just think that they're going to call us today and go and buy, like they could just go and buy a house today. What people need to understand is there's like a little bit of a lag period of realistically a week to 2 weeks if you're on top of your shit. And for most people, 2 to 4 weeks by the time they drag their feet and they get their letter of employment and their employer drags their feet to get their paperwork back and then they talk to the broker. There's a half a month to a month lag period for you to actually get ready. So you don't just call somebody and say, I need to go buy a house tomorrow. And you do that here. And then by the time you're actually ready, it's here. And you're like, well, where are all the houses? And it's like, well, you weren't ready. We needed that half a month to get your stuff together and you couldn't get your letter of employment, or, you needed a gift from family or friends and it was coming from overseas and then the funds have to sit in the account for a certain period of time, but you didn't know that. So if you are thinking about buying a house in 2023, it doesn't start when you want to start shopping. It starts a month to 2 months before you actually want to start shopping so you can get all your stuff together and then not feel rushed and not feel pressured, because it's really overwhelming when you go and you find your dream house and you're like, oh my God, this is it. And then you're like, okay, well, I can't put in an offer because I'm just not ready to go.
Yeah. So just to be clear though, if you are one of those unicorn clients that is ready to go right now, call Emma direct. We'll get the phone number in the description or a pop-up right here, because she can move just as fast as you can if you are fully prepared and qualified. But for everybody else, which is 99.9% of you, please just get in touch a little bit earlier. Save yourself the time and the stress. You will not regret it.
100%. So that's market seasonality. I think like if there's anything that we talked about today, this I think is the most important thing, just looking ahead and really understanding like who you are, what type of buyer you are, how much time you need to prepare, and like actually just following the system. Don't pigeonhole yourself into making a quick decision or making it feel rushed or being uncomfortable. You have a lot of time to prepare. Just like utilize your time effectively.
Yeah, utilize the time and honestly the resources effectively. Very few people in this line of work and in this business, even in a big market like Toronto, have like legitimate personally tested resources, proven actually strategies to drag themselves from renting to that first ladder of home ownership. So like take advantage of this stuff, guys. This is fantastic. The information, or the age of information, is upon us, and Emma and her team are just spoon feeding us.
Yeah, the thing is, I know people don't want to get sold by, like, nobody wants to be sold anything. I hate being sold stuff, right? But what you have to do is you have to find somebody that is willing to give you the information and let you digest that information and use it at your own pace. And I think what happens is a lot of people try and circumvent having a conversation with somebody that already has the information because they don't want to be sold. What I will tell you, anybody that's watching this video, I literally don't care if you download our thing and hop on a call with me and are ready to buy tomorrow, or you're ready to buy in October. I don't care. What I want to do is actually add value so that when you are ready to go, because I know most people aren't, like, you're actually just going to consider me though. Selfishly, that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good piece of advice because, there are a lot of stigmas, and there are a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Perceptions of people that are in sales, especially in real estate. It's very stressful. There's a lot of money on the table. It's a big decision. It's very emotional for a lot of people as well. But the reality is, if you're connecting with an individual or a team that has been consistently growing in the market you're doing business with and are saying these things as if they have done them themselves because they have, then typically they have that long-term mindset. And that is going to be huge for working with the right person. And I think the Canadian Real Estate Channel and the correspondents on the channel that are giving their market segments and giving their advice have that same mindset. So if you're a buyer specifically, now's the time to get ready. If you're thinking about selling in the new year, this is also a really good opportunity to set your property and your situation up for that success. Yeah. So do you have resources? What's the consultation look like for your sellers who are reaching out and saying, hey, I got a property, whether it's primary residence or investment, I'm thinking about either refi, how much equity I got in it, what's the market like to sell? What's that process like as opposed to the buyers?
Yeah, so normally they'll come through and we'll do something called the discovery call, which is where I'll just ask a bunch of questions to really understand what their long-term goals are, right?
I was just going to pepper you guys with questions. I'm doing the same thing, but it's so important.
I ask a lot. I don't, because here's the thing, like to your earlier point about real estate, not even just real estate salespeople, just salespeople in general. Normally they're asking questions only to just respond, and like, again, like they're just like word vomiting all over you about this.
They're following the script, baby.
Yeah, 100%. For us, it's like, I just actually want to know your long-term goals. Like, I'm not a huge proponent of selling real estate. Like if I own real estate, like I want to keep as much of it as I possibly can, which sounds counterintuitive as a salesperson, but like, if you called me and you were like, I really want to keep this property and pull this equity out and go and buy something else, like I would actually genuinely try and help you do that, because it is in your long-term best interest if you have the financial wherewithal to do it. And if I can help you accomplish that, you're going to refer me to more people, and that is actually going to grow my business in a better way than me trying to convince you to sell your house and get paid one time. Like that's not my business model at all. My business model is to grow this team and to grow our business by doing the right thing for people over the long haul. And so for us, it's a discovery call, talking about your long-term goals, look at the options, and then I'll go, okay, cool. We need to do a site visit so I can give you an idea of like the valuation of the property. Mm-hmm. And then we figure out what we should do with it from a timing perspective and strategy perspective after. But like, I'm not going to just go and try and convince someone to put their house on the market at this exact time. Like, we have to actually look at what is your long-term goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And like, what is the best actual path to get you there, whether that's tomorrow or whether that's spring, summer, or 2025.
That's awesome. So we do a quick discovery call. If that makes sense, we're going forward. We want more information. You want to do an actual, site visit. We do a quick site visit, and then boom, you as a potential seller have enough information, and you probably have the big questions kind of answered in your head, so that if you need to get going on it, okay, I got to do X, Y, Z to get the property ready. Or you know what, now's not the time because I've gotten clarity on where my property and my situation stands in the current market. But I obviously have a path for what the next 6 to 12 months could look like if they want to make a move happen.
Totally. So our kind of two main calls that we do with buyers or sellers are a discovery call, which is usually 10 to 15 minutes. And that's kind of like discovering what you're trying to do and then figuring out what the best plan of action from there is. And then depending on where you're at, then we do what we call a strategy call. And that is sometimes combined with the site visit. And the strategy call is, but that usually is 30 to 45 minutes. And that is by the time you're done with that session with our team, you have an exact strategy of what you're doing next. Like, okay, this is our plan of action. These are our next steps. It doesn't necessarily need to happen tomorrow, but like, this is what we need to do to actually accomplish our goals. And
that's usually video call, phone call, or in person, or any of the above.
Buyers will almost exclusively be Zoom. And then sellers, depending on where they're at, either Zoom or we'll do that with the site visit. So when we're there seeing the property and giving a valuation, we're also planning the strategy in the next steps.
Very cool. And what's the best way to set something like that up? If somebody's watching the video, they think, well, Emma seems pretty cool, I guess. Maybe she has an idea what she's talking about, but I have a couple properties, or I got my primary residence. I need some idea of what's happening in 2023. What's the best way to set something like that up?
There's two links below. There's a one link for the download for the renter to owner, and then the second link is to my Calendly. And so when you click on that, it will pull up the main page. There's an option for a discovery call, or there's an option to just book a direct strategy call if that's what you need.
Okay, so we get direct access to book in your calendar, or if we're not ready, we need more resources on renting and own ownership. We got the free download link in the description. Do we have any other stats or any other strategies that we want to go through?
Yeah, we're running out of time here. So this, if anybody wants to just I might even go through this, just take a screenshot. But the most important thing, like I mentioned before, is this actually has the percentage decline from the peak for every specific region. And like, Halton's broken down to Burlington, Halton, Milton, Oakville. Okay. So you can see in your particular region where it's come down from the peak. And then if you look, this actually shows the last month, like what the actual savings were from an average price point perspective. So you can see like some of these places have pulled.
So pause this or DM Emma and one of her team members, and they can flip you specific data. I find too that this is all great, but until you know your target property and your target market segment, this is more good for context. So if you want to take it a step further and better understand how to navigate your specific target property or your specific market segment, that's a specific conversation with Emma and her team. So send them a DM now.
Yep. And then if we actually go through, again, this is just to show kind of like where we're at.
Oh, rental market data though too.
Yeah, rentals, and then this is resale. So you can see this is actual inventory on the market. Obviously, we've been trending downwards for resale, market inventory. Yeah. And we're trending upwards on the rental side of things. So we've seen, and I'll show you this. Let's just go to the end here. We've actually seen this particular segment, which I track every single month, is finally flat. We were seeing like $50 to $90 per month for rental price increases month over month. We've started to see that flatten out, which is common of this time of year. Like there's very few people that, again, want to like move in the winter and all that kind of stuff. But now that we've also seen prices stagnate a little bit, we've also kind of seen that on the rental side of things.
So renters are going to say, whoa, maybe we wait and we see what happens in the new year for prices.
Yep, exactly. So when we go back to that, again, you're seeing a little bit of an increase in terms of actual active inventory on the rental side of things. So if you are renting and you're looking for a new place and you've been looking for the last little while, you may have had like a ton of competition, not a whole heck of a lot to look at. You have less competition, you have more to look at right now.
Interesting. And that's pretty on par.
Yeah,
expectations, right?
Yeah, it's again, seasonality from a rental side of things, which we won't go too far into.
Yep.
And then when we look at sales to new listings ratio, which I thought was really interesting.
Whoa.
So how many sales are happening in a given month in comparison to the new listings that you completed. we saw things, they were quite hot, like 70%. That's really, really high.
Yeah.
We obviously saw them cool off a little bit. We get into like these more yellow months where you have like 40%. And now we're starting to see them actually trend upward a little bit. So we're at 50%.
But do you think that's because fewer homes are coming to market towards the end of the year, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I think you do have some hungry buyers who are like, I want to get this done before the end of the year, and they do have that urgency, and you also just don't have a whole heck of a lot of inventory on the market, so it's kind of like take what you can get at this point in time. So don't be like overly excited about this, but understand that there are more trades that are happening per listing, like per active inventory. That's
relative to the number of homes that are on there. And honestly, guys, if the inventory is staying low, expect that to probably continue. Where if you see in the May to July, as we're in kind of the high 30s, low 40s, if that continued for say 6 months, 12 months, then your inventory is likely stacking a little bit more. We're not quite there yet, it seems.
Yeah, and I think this was also like peak fear. Like remember, like if we like rewind the clocks back.
Oh, May, June was like,
we're
this
like,
is never ending.
How long is this going to last for? Where I feel like now we don't know exactly when it's going to end, but we know we're like on the tail end of things. Here we were right in the thick of it where everyone was like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, this isn't even halfway done yet. It's going to zero.
Yeah, so I think, we definitely don't have a ton of buyer confidence in the market, but I do think we have more buyer confidence in the market now than we had in May or June.
I think that's a very true statement for most markets in Southern Ontario. The light at the end of the tunnel, we know it exists. We just can't quite see exactly where it is yet.
Yeah, totally. So, and then if we look at months of inventory, again, not to go into too much detail about it, but it's been relatively flat for the last 2 months, like not a whole heck of a lot of movement.
You guys are under 3 for freehold and under 4 for condo?
Yeah.
That's still low.
I know it's still relatively low.
Okay.
We were running at like 1 though for a while, so to me, I'm like, it's low, but like it's definitely higher than what we had seen last year. But yeah, I mean, like
you can actually shop now. Come to Toronto, you can actually shop for a property instead of having to buy the first one you see.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, the moral of the story is things have been like relatively flat.
Yeah.
If anything, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen things actually come down quite a bit. And we're trending downwards, but that's to be expected given the time of the year.
Yeah.
And then just to wrap kind of things up, if we're looking at the condo market, so the west side, average price point is $634 right now versus $671.
Okay.
177 sales last month. Toronto, the central, which is primarily comprised of CO1 and CO8. This is like where the condo density is downtown. Yeah. 594 sales. Average price point is $792.
So activity is staying normal in there, right? And I guess that's why prices have kind of been as flat as they have been.
Yeah, I mean, I would typically expect, given this time of the year, to have just over 1,000 sales, like somewhere between like 1,050 to maybe like 1,100.
So volume way down.
Yeah, I don't know why this says August too. I just forgot to change the month, but if we're looking at, I just want to give everyone kind of an idea of price point. If you're looking to be in Toronto and you're looking for the least expensive, like lowest barrier to entry, you're looking in the east. It's $600K. You can still buy something decent out there for like $500,000. You can still be on the subway line for that. And if you actually look at the home price index for like Scarborough Town Center, which is up here where the subway line is, it actually had some of the highest growth over the last 5 years. So some people think, ooh, Scarborough, like it just kind of has that stigma associated with it. But if you look at the rental prices to purchase price ratio and being on the subway line, getting downtown in like half an hour to 40 minutes, and being able to buy there for $500,000, like there's a good area of opportunity for future growth, I believe.
And you've mentioned that is a good value area for first-time buyers, investors, and downsizers that don't want to be too far out of the city. I've seen it on your videos before, so great value spot to take a look at if you have some price-sensitive buyers or investors out there looking for some deals.
100%. And then we went through the rental market stuff. So that's all I got for you guys today. I think at the end of the day, again, don't go too crazy on the numbers. Just focus on the actual strategy. Focus on like figuring out who you are as a buyer, who you are as a seller, what you're trying to accomplish, and then what kind of time frame you need to prepare. That would literally be what I would advise this month.
Absolutely. And I know Emma and her team has said it here, and they've said it before, having the right strategy and the right resources up front and giving yourself that little bit, just a little bit. We're not asking months, just a couple weeks to prepare. will help you be able to actually move and offer or sell with confidence. And, you know, you don't need somebody to come in and sell you anything. You need somebody to give you the resources, the strategy, and the confidence to know what the heck you're doing. If that's something you need and you're in the Toronto market, Pace of Base, one of the best follows on Instagram and one of our best correspondents here on the Canadian Real Estate Channel, Emma Pace. Thank you for joining us today. We have free downloads. We have links in the description. We hope you have a very, very happy holidays if you're celebrating. And until next time, make sure you leave us a comment, hit the subscribe button, and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for checking out our Toronto update on the Canadian Real Estate Channel, guys. We will see you next time.